And the one and only in 2023. Bob, Laura, how are y'all? I see
Good
a bunch
morning.
of just, I see just the round circles of anonymous, of anonymity. No more, no faces. I feel very alone right now.
Sorry, we're all just paying
I've got
attention to you.
I've got to
There we
grow
go. Thank you, Harold.
got to
First
grow a
brave
beard.
soul. Probably half of y'all are in pajamas. That's what the real issue is, right?
Plead the fifth.
All right. Fair enough. Well, listen, for this first one, we are going to ease into this. I am beginning a tracking list that I will formalize in the form of a report, which we will update weekly once January gets here. But for now, I'm casting as wide a net as I can to try to make sure that we're covering the bills that are of interest to our industry, our profession. And I'm also looking for your input. So every once in a while, I will miss one. Between Laura and I and Alan, we are watching statutory references, listening to news clips and hearing chatter from various sources. So you're one of those sources of chatter. So I want to make sure that if y'all hear of a bill of interest to you that is not on the list that I'm going to show you here in a minute, then please do let me know. We will take any input we get from this morning, and I will turn it into a report, and we'll get that out to the group, and you guys and gals can study it over your Christmas breaks and be ready, be fully engaged and fully educated when we get to session in January. All right, so let me, with that as kind of the opening admin housekeeping remarks for this morning, let me share my screen and we will start the stump the chump phase of this morning's call. So this is a tracking list that I have put together based on all the bills that have come that have been filed, right? So this is not going to capture something that a member has submitted to bill drafting that has not come out of bill drafting with a number. But once it comes out and it's been filed, if it contains any references in Chapter 403 or Chapter 373 or 161, those are all the statutory references I selected, then it should pop up. So again, I think this is a pretty comprehensive list right now, but every once in a while we miss one. I'm prepared to go through these very briefly to give everybody a cliff notes of what's been filed, kind of what we've got to chew on so far. And then I also want to point out, even before I get started, that one of the elephants in the room is the stormwater ratification bill. It has not been filed. It's likely in bill drafting, but it has not come out of bill drafting, and it's not been filed and does not have a number as of last night when I last looked. If that changes today, I'll let everybody know. As soon as I see it, I'll let everybody know. But for now, it's not in this list. So even when you see something like MSSW or statewide environmental resource permitting rules, don't get excited. This is not the stormwater ratification rule. Okay? Okay, so any comments or questions or criticisms before I go through these? All right, so far so good. Okay, so was that a question, comment? Okay.
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Bob. All right, so SB 32 is a coming out of Environmental and Natural Resources, Senate Environmental and Natural Resources, so it's a committee bill. This is a replanting and restoration rule bill. So, as probably most of y'all know, there is a mangrove trimming statute. There are some shoreline, living shoreline references and I think a regulation on that now, but there is not a rule on mangrove replanting and restoration for some reason. I think the Senate committee believes there should be a rule. So this bill would create the authority and direction for the department to go into rulemaking on mangrove replanting and restoration. It does not have a House companion, but it has moved through one stop. It left the Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. Any questions on that? Okay. There is a solid waste rule passed by or filed by Senator Stewart. It does have a House companion. This is a solid waste recycling goal replacement or update or recycling goal 2.0. If you're not familiar with the state of Florida recycling, we have a goal of X percent, recycling by Y year, and I think we passed it, or at least we didn't make, we're not going to make it. And so this is a kind of a recycling plan 2.0. I don't know if it's got legs. It hasn't been scheduled for any hearings yet, but it does have a House companion. And if you're interested in recycling, it's the one to watch. The House companion is down here, 455. These two bills by Mayfield, 74 and 82, are just housekeeping bills, but they popped up because they contain housekeeping on, in some of the environmental statutes. I'm just going to bring one up just for fun, because I think somebody, is Gary Ward on? All right.
I've not seen them.
Okay. If there's anyone in our membership that will check all of these, it will be Gary Ward. And I think everybody that knows him would agree with that statement. And so I'm hoping that somebody like Gary will check and make sure that this reviser's bill doesn't do anything wonky. But here's a 403 reference. There's a 373 reference in here, a couple of those, a 376, which is petroleum or waste cleanup, 380 Department of Health. So there's a lot of reviser stuff that I think is intended to address repealed or superseded. I mean, you can just read the words right here. They've expired. Their references have been superseded or repealed. So here's where there could be some unintended consequences. Is as House or Senate staff in this case are correcting, grammatical, typographical, removing inconsistencies, redundancies, unnecessary repetition. There may be a chance that there's an unintended consequence in here. So it probably is worth a quick look, but I have not done that. So there's two of those. Let me let this reload. Y'all are stealing all my bandwidth. All right, so after those two, this dredging and beach restoration project bill, this is a repeat from last year. So we've seen this before. There's a Senate companion by Senator Rodriguez. This is by Gossett Seidman. She's a Republican in Palm Beach County, new representative, relatively new. This one is the requirement. Again, we saw this last year. We were tracking it last year. It requires for maintenance dredging projects sponsored by local governments to have a third, to notify the department and have a third party not hired by the local government, a third party reviewer of the dredging plan and the sediment control plan or turbidity plan to ensure that there aren't, unintended or unknown adverse environmental impacts associated with it. So it was criticized last year by the Florida Beaches and Shores Preservation Association and FSBPA. Were concerned about it adding costs to beach projects. Last year it included seaports, but the seaports got themselves pulled out. The seaports are not in this one. So this is mostly going to impact the FSBPA type people, or mostly those type of folks. If you're in that space, that's something you're going to want to look at. I know I'm going fast. If anybody has questions, will you just jump in or stop me or raise your hand? And Laura, if you see a hand raised, please stop me because I'm going to power through.
Will do.
Thank you. Safe Waterways Act is interesting. It doesn't do what you might imagine when you see the title. This is actually a transfer of yet another program from the Department of Health to the Department of Environmental Protection. This one transfers the bacteriological monitoring and reporting program for public bathing places like beaches and rivers and lakes and springs. That bacteriological surveillance program has been at the Department of Health since its creation. I think it appears to me that there's some belief that they're not doing a good job, and they're transferring that program lock, stock, and barrel to DEP. It will require a report by December of 24 and then a transfer by July of 25. So it's not going to happen very quickly. And unless you're in the bacteriological surveillance world, you probably don't care too much about that. Next, I'm going to talk about a group of 3 bills, starting with 406, statewide environmental resource permitting by Rodriguez. Down here, 738, environmental management by Burgess, and 789, environmental management by Overdorf. These 3 bills have something in common. They all contain the side slope provision for stormwater. In the case of these other 2 bills by Burgess and Overdorf, they do contain a few other provisions that we're going to want to look at, and we're going to want to pay attention to this as it moves forward, because it's set up to become a train for a similar but kind of unrelated provisions related to, in part 4373, so stormwater ERP regulation, and then some related things. So just from the bill summary, you can get a gist of it. There's a prevailing party language about, attorneys' reasonable costs. This is for rule challenges of ERP, or not rule challenges, sorry, permit challenges. So there's, it's got the ingredients for a train, because that's first thing. Then it has non-industrial stormwater management with side slopes. So this is, again, non-industrial. So regular residential has a side slope provision. It has a reg review in coastal permitting and other permitting, coastal spelled wrong, I see here, and requires reports of findings. So it's got a lot of stuff in here already, and it could contain more as it moves through the process. This one hasn't been calendared yet. I don't think any of these bills have been calendared yet. Maybe wrong about that. But there is certainly early in the process. Any questions on what I'm going to call for now the environmental or stormwater train bill?
No.
See somebody talking. Anybody? Okay.
No
All right.
questions.
Thank you. There is a bottled water tax bill filed by Linda Stewart. It does not have a House companion. May or may not move, but these have been filed before. Seems like every 2 or 3 years there's a bottled water tax being proposed. This land and water management by Maggard, and there is a companion by Burgess. This is actually pretty interesting. I laughed when I read this. I don't think it's gonna do anything. I don't think it's gonna move, because it's just so bold in its ambition here. But it will require that the wetland buffers, all right, so these are in various forms around the state. You've got some local governments that have wetland buffers for development. You got to set back at least 75 feet or 50 feet. Sometimes it's 25, matching ERP. What it would require is if a county or municipality requires a buffer, then they've got to condemn the buffer through eminent domain. So it would be a huge cost on local government to impose a buffer zone from land or water. That's why I see it's just kind of incredibly ambitious. And then it's also a preemption bill. It preempts the regulation of dredge and fill activities to the state. So how about them apples? It's got a House companion, a Senate companion. So, but no scheduled committee stops yet. It could just be one of these kind of statement bills, you know, just a shot across the bow by Randy Maggart. Not sure about that. Any questions about that so far? Okay. There's a waterway markers bill by Gruters. I think it's kind of silly. This is actually a area of regulation that's almost entirely controlled by the Coast Guard. So I don't know why we should have our own set of waterway marker requirements. This one down here, mitigation areas by Simon is interesting, and this MSSW bill by Killebrew is interesting. So I'm going to open both these up and talk about them. So this one is Simon's SB 836 mitigation bill. Interesting one to watch. I don't give it a high chance of passing in its current form, but it could become a mitigation related train bill or get ornaments hung on it. This one does tweak UMAM. And if you are a UMAM practitioner or familiar with how that works, it's a scoring rule for wetlands that are either being impacted or created for mitigation to offset impacts. There is it's tweaking how the risk factor is considered in UMAM. And UMAM has not had a significant tweak since its creation in, you know, probably 19 or 18 years ago. So this would be kind of the first changing of the rules of UMAM. And there is something in here that I don't fully understand yet about encumbering property for mitigation. So anyway, if you're into UMAM mitigation, then that's something to take a look at and definitely keep an eye on. I'll keep it on the tracking list in case it gets a house companion or grows at all. And then the last one by Killebrew is looks like a glitch bill or an amendment bill to the bill that was passed last year on water quality enhancement areas. So that was a newly created type of program to have government owned and operated kind of regional water quality projects to do water quality credits. Sorry, they're not government owned. They can be owned by government or private, but government was the only people that could take advantage of the water quality credits generated by these. This one, I have not studied it in detail yet, but it appears to enlarge or remove some limitations on water quality enhancement areas that were added when that bill was originally passed. This is currently in rulemaking with the department. So it's interesting to me that the bill sponsor is proposing changes to the statute that authorized the rule, that directed the department to do that rule while the rule is going on. So anyway, just one to watch if you are in that space or know anything about water quality enhancement areas or want to know about them. And believe it or not, that's the end of the list of bills that I have seen come out of bill drafting that are environmental related. It's not a long list yet.
It's certainly early.
It is early, although we have an early session and there's going to be a deadline for filing on the first day. So we don't have a ton of time. I suspect the bill drafting folks are going to be working nights and weekends for the next, up until Christmas to try to get everything else out.
Any questions for Jeff? Comments?
Y'all are making it easy on me.
I'm surprised Mr. Ward it's not joined.
Well, if somebody wants to torture me, you could email him SB 74 and SB 82 for some reading, some weekend reading. Hey, Len, please don't do it to me. I thought you were coming off of mute to say you would do it.
Yeah, I was going to volunteer, but I decided not to. You saw that quick on and off.
I did. I was watching you. I was watching your bubble.
Quick.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I mentioned at the outset, if anybody hears or sees anything that that you don't remember from this quick summary this morning, please shoot me an email, shoot Laura an email. We'll add it to the list. We'll research it, and if it's a bill we miss, we'll add it to the list. We will do one of those fancy reports like we had last year with clickable links, so you can get the PDF. If you want to look at the bill, you can click on the link and it'll take you to the bill summary or the bill text. We'll get that out. My goal is to have those to y'all weekly on the Thursday afternoon before the Friday morning call. So everybody has those every Thursday. We'll start that the first Thursday in January.
Okay, Jeff, I sent you a summary of a bill, a PCD, and I don't have the number, but it affects special districts.
Oh, right. I do remember that.
At 298s and CDDs, and the biggest item in it is term limits for board members. Limits at 12 years, which is weird, but it's an anti-district bill.
Yeah. I did not put that on the list because it like you just summarized, I think I read it the same way. It seems to be after the governance of special districts and CDDs and independent special districts and CDDs. I know that Association of Florida Community Developers is all over that and is going to be working on that pretty heavily. Our land development committee, I think, may be more interested in that than the environmental committee. So I did not put it on the environmental list, Bob.
Gotcha.
But thanks for putting it on my radar. If it starts to incorporate anything environmental, then I will certainly put it on this list. But you're right. I think the land development folks and the AFCD types are going to be watching that very closely.
Yes. It's probably fallout from Reedy Creek.
There's still some fallout, but I think the legislature, when they first started to do those rifle shots at Reedy Creek, all of the rest of the special districts and CDDs got themselves kind of out of harm's way. Those are very narrowly applied kind of surgical strikes. This one appears to be much more broad, and I think it is an overreach. I think CDDs and ISDs and those types of structures are very good structures for development. I don't know why. I don't know who's got a burr under their saddle on this.
Yep. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm happy to return minutes in your day. Unless anybody else has anything. Alan, any words of wisdom? I know you say it's environmental, so I don't care.
No, it's all good with me. But or if one of you would send me the bill Bob was just mentioning, just to make sure I've got it on my radar.
Will do. Bob, I've got that. I can send it down.
I'll see if I can get the number today.
I'll
Just a
flip it to you, Alan.
reminder,
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
sorry. Just a reminder, today is the last day to register for PE days. If you haven't already, please do so.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. And if I don't talk to you all, have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank
Happy New
you.
Year.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. We'll see you in 2024.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.